Hi guys, what's going on? If you follow EDM, you may have heard about a certain sort of experience that's been going on for the last couple of months. It's kind of been run by electronic music producer Zedd. Basically, the idea is that it's a scavenger hunt where he hides a bunch of Zedd symbols around some of the major cities in America, and then at certain dates people have to go off and find those symbols, and the first 50 people to find them then they, get driven off to a secret location where he gives them an exclusive first listen of one of his latest tracks on his upcoming sophomore album, True Colors. So the idea is that for each location, the location corresponds with a colour, and the colour corresponds with the song that he's showing. For example, in the first location, he was showing Addicted to a Memory, and that colour corresponded with purple, and so everything in the cave was sort of purple themed, and they, had purple lights, and basically, yeah, the whole thing was just purple. They put on Purple Beats headphones, and it was sort of, the idea was that that song sounded like the colour purple, like it was meant to make you think of the colour purple, and that's pretty much what he's done for all of his songs. Each song is made to make you think of a colour. So it's quite a creative sort of, almost psychological idea of this thing of, music corresponding with colours. Hence why all of this was to promote his upcoming album called True Colors. Now, while this album's actually going to be released on the 18th of May, or 19th of May where I live in Australia, I was actually lucky enough to get my mitts on it during a pre-release. So as you can see here, I got a physical copy, not just a digital copy, because I'm pretty sure that's actually been released, but yeah, I was lucky enough to get a physical copy before its official release. And yeah, I was actually thinking of reviewing it on the day I got it, but I was sort of filled with euphoria, and I probably wouldn't have been able to, speak straight beyond the kind of point of, oh my gosh! So yeah, you can already kind of see that my general opinion on it is fairly positive, but I thought I'd review it anyway. So what I'm going to do is, first up, I'm just going to look at the actual physical album and kind of pull it apart, and, well, not break it, go through the booklet inside and that sort of thing. Then I'm going to talk about each of the individual songs and what I think of each one. Then, obviously, I'll just kind of go over the whole album as a whole. So I think this is actually the first time I've ever reviewed an album before. So I know that of all the mediums, albums, like music, is definitely probably the most subjective, because there's never really any right or wrong. It's often an opinion, so I'm going to kind of keep it like that. Yeah, just sort of based on my own opinion. Let's get started. Okay, so first of all, as you can see, it has this nice cover art. It's sort of like a tree with all of the different colours, and each colour, as I said, kind of represents a song. And I really like this album artwork because it's just really kind of neat, the way that he's done it. Everything's just really in order, and there's often, some subtle things here and there. I don't know if it's just me, but I swear that looks like a Z. Like, it's just, see, that's the first bit across there, then the rainbow like goes up, and then, I don't know, is there another bit just going there? But I just kind of like these subtle things like that Zedd does. I'm pretty sure even in the Addicted to a Memory song, if you look at the cover art for that, I believe I saw a face in it, because I was like staring at it for ages, because I was making a piano tutorial for it. I'm like, wait a minute, is that a face? But, just subtle things like that. I kind of like how he hides, subliminal kind of, not subliminal, but just hidden things like that. I don't know if this was intentional, maybe it's just me, overlooking it too much. Then on the other side, obviously we have our track lists, and all the colours again, and as you can see, I'm pretty sure that's about all of them. If not, they're probably blended in there somewhere. And yeah, there's 11 songs in total, as you can see here. And he even actually, most of the time, says who's featured in the song, which is pretty cool, because I don't really like it when artists, they have a really good vocalist, for example, and they just won't, give their name in the title, and they deserve that credit because they're often really good. But here, for the most part, he has listed them, which is great. But on to what we really care about, which is the inside. As you can see here, he's made this sort of wooden kind of log ripple for the disc, which is quite neat. I love when any kind of, artist comes up with a way to, do something clever with the disc. Seeing things, for example, like the Simpsons movie where they did like a donut. Just things like that. And I really appreciate this sort of log, and I don't know if that's meant to kind of represent anything to do with, the colour theme that he's going with. But also, the main thing here is this little booklet, so we'll have a look inside at this. So basically this is a lyric booklet. As we can see here, each song has its corresponding colour in the background, so, you know, I kind of like this idea because it means that years later, when, you know, it's almost like people have forgotten about how this album came about, you'll still have these colours in here that, you know, correspond to the song, and so you'll still remember that, and I feel like that's a good way to kind of keep people remembering that, because otherwise, you know, it just could be totally forgotten about the whole theme of this album and what it's, you know, how he came about all of this stuff. Also noticed that I Want You to Know is this kind of violet, or is it a violet? It's more of a just purple colour, but yeah, because that song, he didn't actually play that in the True Colours Experience. That was like a separate thing that he released on the side, but I just find it interesting that it also has its own little colour. I mean, I guess he had to put some colour there. Also, you know, you can see here, we've got the magenta for Beautiful Now, black for Transmission, Done With Love is a sort of bluish, I don't know what you call it. True Colours, that's a red. Also, True Colours, yeah, that's an interesting one because he hasn't, at the time of me filming this, he hasn't actually premiered that, even though I've heard it. I don't know how that works. I believe he's doing that at New York City, but I'm wondering, is he going to do something else? Because the whole point of this experience was that the people got to hear it before it came out, but the True Colours, it's like, I've already heard it. And I don't know. Anyway, then in the middle here, we have this nice artwork. I'll just put it up close so you can see. It's sort of the same sort of thing as what's on the front cover. Yeah, it's just that tree. That's it's more of a close-up in a nice high kind of resolution, I guess. So you can just really see that. And I love the artwork. This is a really, I don't know, there's something about that. I just really like the artwork on it. It's just colourful, and I feel like, yeah, it just represents the album really well. And I know Zedd sort of likes to do these things with trees, like with, you know, roots. I remember on his last album, he sort of had these roots, you know, surrounding the logo Clarity. So I thought that was really clever. We got orange for Straight Into the Fire, white for Paper Cut, which is one of my favourites, but I'll get into that later. Bumblebee, I thought this was really clever. Yellow background, obviously, but what really kind of struck me was, instead of having lyrics here, like he has with all of the others, because this song doesn't have lyrics, it's like a sort of, well, most people would think it's a Morse code, but I noticed, because this is actually what DJs input into their software when they're creating the song's notes. So for example, I don't know how I'm going to explain this, but when I use Fruity Loops, for example, when I input notes to create a MIDI, the note lengths are determined by the length of the line. So for example, this is a long line, it's like da, 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 like, you know, it's sort of like Morse code. That's pretty much it, Morse code, but yeah, so each kind of length of the note is determined by the length of the line. So, you know, I thought that was clever that instead of putting lyrics there, he did that, and also that only a few people, you know, who actually, you know, make electronic music with these programs will get that. But yeah, I thought it was cool. Then we got Green for Daisy, also a great song. Blue, light blue for Illusion, and yeah, then he says right at the end, "Thank you for letting me show you my true colours," just on that page. Just kind of see it there. It says Executive Producer Zedd. So that's pretty much the booklet covered. Yeah, as you can see, I'm pretty positive about the design of this. It's pretty clever. I like just how neat and how everything just fits in the way it does. So now I'll get into what my thoughts are on the songs. Okay, so the first song on the album is Addicted to a Memory, and this actually came out before the album was released. It was one of those songs that he pre-released so people could, you know, kind of get a taste for the album before they buy it. And funnily enough, this is also one of my favourite songs on the album. Well, I'm going to be saying that a lot because I like freaking love all of the songs on this album, if I'm completely honest. Addicted to a Memory, it's more, if you were like into Zedd's kind of old Complextro style, I think you'll really like this because it just has a really awesome drop. It's not so much the how melodic it is, because I wouldn't say it's the most melodic song on the album. It's probably one of the least melodic, but the rhythm of the drop, that is just to die for, and it's just so hardcore. It's basically like Zedd's signature bass sound, and then he has this really just hardcore rhythm going on with it. Yeah, and it's just so good. It's not really so much like other dubstep where there's a whole kind of range of wubs, and it's just more one consistent sound. But the whole kind of drawing for that song is just the rhythm of the drop. And then it sort of builds and he has other solid rhythms going over the top of that. And it never gets like messy or overpowered like a lot of other dubstep songs can. It's just this constant, you know, single signature bass sound, and then he just slowly builds upon it. And yeah, it's brilliant. It also has a few verses in it that are more kind of pop style, and you think it's going in that direction, but then you get to the drop and you realise that it's like a lot of his old complextro. So, you know, for people who are into that kind of thing, you know, Zedd's old music, more into that, then this will definitely be a refresher to have as the first song on the album especially. Next up we have I Want You to Know, which is obviously probably the most popular song, well at least so far, considering the album hasn't been released yet. I'm sure you've all heard that song. It's with this Selena Gomez. I have heard that song so many times because I'm pretty obsessed with it, obviously. Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about it. Just it's the pop song that you'd probably hear on the radio the most, I guess. I mean, you've already heard it, so I'm not really going to go into what it sounds like. But yeah, I'd say that's definitely the hit of the album. If that turns out to be the only hit, then that's the hit of the album. But I'm hoping that there'll be at least one other song that becomes a hit, because there's definitely potential there. Next up we have Beautiful Now. This one corresponded with the colour magenta, and I remember Zedd explaining that that was sort of meant to mean that, you know, magenta's like a calm colour, but then it can also be really energetic. And so that was sort of why he did that with his song, or maybe he did it the other way around, he put the colour with it afterwards. But either way, the kind of idea of the song is that it starts out, you know, just this kind of calm verses, and it's meant to sound like, you know, beautiful, obviously, because it's called Beautiful Now, and then it gets to this more energetic drop. Well, I wouldn't call it a drop so much. I always think drop, that means bass drop, and the bass doesn't drop, but it's more just this kind of energetic pop type style song. So again, if you're into that pop style like I Want You to Know, then yeah, you'll probably like this as well. Next up is Transmission, and he's actually collaborated with some rappers, Logic and X-Ambassadors. So they're rapping in the song, or at least one of them is. I don't know, I haven't researched it enough, and I don't really follow like hip-hop or anything, so I'm not really up on, you know, who's a rapper here. I don't know, maybe one of them was just helping him with the song and one of them was rapping, don't ask me. But either way, again, if you're into Zedd's more hardcore stuff, then yeah, this one's definitely good. It sort of has this energetic but hardcore instrumental in it, builds the rap on top of this. But what I like about this song the most is how the syncopation of it is really different to what anything you'd hear normally. It's quite ambitious actually, because the instrumental synth that's playing throughout the song, sorry, just had to hiccup there, got it, okay. The instrumental that's playing throughout the song is actually played on the offbeat of the drum beat. So the drum beat is playing on the offbeat of the instrumental. I just said the same thing twice, but the other way around. So yeah, you know, it's stuff like that. You don't really hear that in any other song, and I just love how ambitious it is. And what's even really more awesome on top of that is when the rapping comes in, that's offbeat as well, and it's like, it works so well. Because often rapping, I feel like rapping works well when it's syncopated. It's just something about rap songs. I don't know if I've heard many songs like that before, but when you hear Zedd doing this, it's just like, yes, this works so well. And so yeah, definitely a good song, especially considering this is Zedd's first, you know, attempt at anything close to hip-hop. I mean, I wouldn't call the instrumental style hip-hop, but it's got rapping in it, so, you know. Done With Love is probably, I said I wasn't going to say this, but it's one of my favourite songs on this album as well. It's sort of this energetic, electronic, it starts off like with these pop verses, but then it has this really colourful, energetic, and melodic drop. Well, not a drop, but, you know, is there a name for this? A riff, I guess? You know, it's like a build-up, sort of like Spectrum, whatever you call that. Whatever you call it is in Spectrum, I'm just going to refer to that now. It's like, sort of similar, it gave me a similar kind of feel. I mean, Spectrum was unique because it kind of jumped in and out of major and minor, but with this one it's more, it's just a really colourful song. Like, I know this song was meant to correspond with, I believe it was some kind of, was it, hang on, I think it was, no, it was Blue, wasn't it? It was, yeah, this kind of blue colour here. But when I listen to it, I often think of like a rainbow because it's so colourful when it gets to the riff. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favourites, I'd say. Sorry, I know this isn't really any like professional insight or anything, but as I said, this is just really subjective, so there's no real good way to kind of, you know, explain your opinions professionally. It's more just me, you know, kind of just giving thoughts here and there, because it's not really as straightforward as reviewing other stuff. Next up is True Colours, which is really different to all of the other ones. It's much more of a kind of slow ballad. It doesn't really sound really as electronic as anything Zedd's done before, to be honest. So if, you know, you're not really into EDM as much, but you're thinking of picking this album up anyway, definitely recommend this one because, yeah, it's just kind of slow build up, and yeah, it has more of a ballad sound rather than any kind of energetic electronic. It's just a slow song, really, so, you know, probably my least favourite on the album, just because that's not really my taste as much. But that said, like, that's relatively speaking. Like, I still think it's a good song, so yeah. Straight Into the Fire, I wasn't sure whether I preferred Done With Love or Straight Into the Fire. One of those two, probably my favourite on the album. Again, Straight Into the Fire, it's sort of like it has verses, then it has that riff, and the riff is like to die for. It's just, I think Zedd said that he imagined it being played like in a stadium or something. It definitely has that sound. It's just a simple riff, but it's powerful and energetic, and that was meant to correspond with Orange because it's like straight into the fire, you know? So it's got this kind of raw, sort of like energetic fire sound, I guess. Next up is Paper Cut. I know I've said it twice now, but it's a favourite. Yeah, it's basically, it starts out on piano. It's more of a slow song, but I'd say it's probably more to my taste as far as slow ballad type songs go. I wouldn't call this a ballad as much. I don't know, what defines a ballad? Anyway, it's a slower song, and it just has this really nice gradual build up, but it never gets too, you know, energetic. It's not really so much like the other songs that are really energetic. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for this song that probably wouldn't work as much, so I'm glad, you know, it stays kind of on this slow, well, I wouldn't say slow, but just kind of, you know, not as built up. It's just kind of this constant piano type melody, and then it sort of transitions into an electronic type version of that melody. But it doesn't build too much. It builds a little, but it still has those same kind of feels the whole time. I actually thought this song translated so well onto piano that I actually did a piano tutorial for this song, which I would recommend checking out. I'll put an annotation at the end of this video for it. Yeah, yeah, as I said, it translates well onto piano. It's melodic. It just sounds, yeah. Again, it's probably one that if you're not into electronic music as much, you'll like, because it gives you like feels. Like, I think at the start of the song, there's this sort of paper sound, like paper flipping sound. I don't know if it's meant to be paper flipping or if it's meant to be rain. I kind of feel like it's paper flipping that's meant to sound like rain, but that could just be my interpretation. And yeah, so it's definitely a soothing, relaxing song. That's probably the big thing about that, yeah, is just how relaxing it is. It can honestly put you to sleep. Next is Bumblebee. Now, I didn't realise this, but he actually played this, well, I did once I heard it, but he actually played this at Ultra Music Festival in 2014. Nobody knew this. I think someone actually uploaded a video to YouTube from, you know, the Ultra Music Festival 2014, and they ripped this song from it, and then they said that it was Bumblebee. So I guess some people worked it out somehow, but certainly back then no one would have known that that was, you know, one of his songs that he was putting on his new album. And so, you know, there it is that whole time, and people are thinking, oh, I wonder what Bumblebee's like, and it's right there, you can listen to it, no one knew. So I thought that was pretty cool. As for the actual song itself, what it's like, again, it's more of this kind of hardcore, electronic-only type song. This is the only song on the album which doesn't have any vocals. Well, it does have a little bit, but it's primarily instrumental-focused, instrumental-driven. The idea is that it sounds like a bunch of bees that are buzzing closer towards you. I remember hearing Zedd say that in the video for the experience on this song. And yeah, it's pretty cool because I've heard a bunch of electronic songs like this. Like, you hear them in these, you know, electronic radio shows, and they never really hit a high point for me. Like, but this one, when it drops, it has a really unique sound that I don't think I've ever heard anywhere else before. And that alone just kind of really drew me to it, because it's not just a boring sound either. Like, it's a really, gee, we're talking about sounds. This is, you're talking about electronic music when you're reviewing the sounds, as opposed to like the actual music. It's yeah, as I said, it's meant to sound like bees buzzing in a way, but it's sort of like Martin Garrix's Animals. Imagine like hearing that sound for the first time. It's basically like that, hearing this sound, and it's yeah, for that reason I really like it. And also, obviously also, like, I thought it was a kind of creative idea to try and make it sound like something, in this case bees, hence why it's called Bumblebee. Second to last is Daisy, and this is definitely, like, this is the shortest song on the album, so it's definitely more vocal driven. You're not really going to see any drop. In fact, I think this could possibly be one of the only songs on the album that doesn't have like an instrumental build-up, then a drop of some sort, or a riff. Actually, no, True Colours, I don't know. Yeah, forget I said that. But yeah, Daisy, it's vocal-driven, it sounds fairly innocent, I reckon. It's, there's no real anything too energetic. I mean, it's energetic, but it's light. It's sort of something your mum could listen to, I guess, if that makes any sense. Then finally we have Illusion, and I feel like this is kind of the niche song that will appeal to a lot of people who, again, like these slow kind of songs. Because it kind of has this, it's sort of, yeah, like the name of the song, Illusion. It's this kind of eerie sort of sound to it. It's also sung by Echo Smith, who sing the song Cool Kids, so you'll know them from that. Other than that, I don't know if there's any other artists on here that I recognise. There's Selena Gomez, I want you to know. Oh, I know one of the artists who isn't mentioned but does actually sing a couple of the songs on here, or a couple, I think. Yeah, I think she sings Straight Into the Fire and Daisy. Julia Michaels, I recognise her from singing the song Surrender by Cash Cash. You might recognise her voice. I certainly did when I heard it. I'm like, huh, that's her. And then I looked it up, and sure enough it was. So there's her, and I guess, I don't know, maybe she's sort of famous for not being mentioned, because she wasn't mentioned in that Cash Cash song either, and she's like one of the only artists on here that, on this album, that isn't mentioned as well, so who knows. Anyway, getting back on track, my overall thoughts on this album. I love it. I friggin' love it. Probably the number one thing that strikes me with this album is just how much it will appeal to kind of a wide range of people. Because, I mean, if you look at the songs, whatever sort of music style you listen to, there's bound to be at least one song on this album that will appeal to you. For example, if you're into Zedd's more old school, how's it go again? And again, if you're into Zedd's kind of old complextro style, far out, I've just eaten, sorry, then you'll like Addicted to a Memory, what else is there? Bumblebee, Transmission, which that one has the bonus of rap, obviously. Those ones are really the hardcore songs, so if you're into Zedd's kind of old stuff, then you'll love those. If you're into more of Zedd's pop kind of style, like Clarity and Find You, that sort of thing, then you'll definitely like I Want You to Know, obviously, that's like the big hit of the album. Beautiful Now as well, and probably Daisy as well, because that was more vocal driven. So yeah, you'll probably, I'd say, definitely like those. If you're into these slow kind of ballad, or just slow but melodic and relaxing, peaceful, soothing type songs, then he's got a bunch of those as well, True Colours, Paper Cut and Illusion. They're just really slow and soothing, and I love those as well. But if, like me, you're into the kind of upbeat, electronic yet melodic type songs, then you'll definitely like Done With Love and Straight Into the Fire, because yeah, it's a nice, I find like they're a nice mix between the pop style as well as this electronic, because this is an electronic style. It's just kind of nice balance between those two things. So yeah, really there's something for everyone in this album, and that's probably the number one reason why I would recommend it, because as I said, even if you're not into one specific hardcore style, there's just a really diverse range of styles on this album.